Okay. Okay. So good evening, friends, and thank you, Dr. Meena, for having me here. I am Arup Chakrabarti, and I have no financial interest in the contents of my presentation. Way back, Duke Elder defined neovascular glaucoma as a severely painful and a disastrous condition, and he noted that any attempt at operative reduction of ocular tension makes matters worse by inducing profuse and recurrent hemorrhages. And the only practical treatment if retroviral alcohol or cyclodiathermy doesn't work, fails to relieve pain is enucleation. So since that time, we have really traveled a long way, and we have got a better understanding of the pathophysiological pathways. Because of the all-round advances in ophthalmology, we are able to arrive at a diagnosis at a much earlier timeline. The therapeutic options also have improved with the advent of anti-VEGFs in the therapeutic armamentarium. The scenario has changed. Again, with the anti-VEGFs and with the antimetabolites, we are able to obtain better results with trabeculectomy tubes and shunts. So we are basically dealing with a situation where the prognosis has become much better than earlier. And this slide shows you a series of pictures, pre-treatment and post-treatment in our patients, and the patients have done well. So in my presentation, I'm going to share with you the principles that we employ in our center for managing patients with neovascular glaucoma. So these are all the conditions that may be associated with neovascular glaucoma. This is a busy slide, and I have no intention of going through the details of each and every condition. This is just to emphasize that all these conditions have one final common pathway wherein there is retinal hypoxia or ischemia that liberate angiogenic factors that migrate diffuse anteriorly, resulting in anterior segment neovascularization. Diabetes mellitus with proliferative diabetic retinopathy, CRVO, particularly the ischemic variety of CRVO, ocular ischemic syndrome account for 75% of all the patients with neovascular glaucoma. And I think diabetes and central retinal vein occlusion account for 33 plus 33 percentage of all the cases. So whenever we have patients landing up with this condition to our clinic, we should be alert, we should be on our toes and work up these patients well, take adequate prophylactic measures so that we can prevent these patients from moving to the next stage of neovascular glaucoma. We are all familiar with the different stages of neovascular glaucoma, stage 1, 2, and 3. They are basically characterized by the presence of different grades of neovascularization in the anterior segment, the anatomy of the anterior chamber angle, and the presence of intraocular and the level of intraocular pressure. In the rubeotic stage, you just have a proliferation of vessels on the pupillary margin, and on gonioscopy, you may be able to see an arborization of the vessels in the angle. And it is best to catch these patients at an early stage and start treatment so that these patients do not move to the next two stages. In the next two stages, the intraocular pressure is raised, and it is an open angle mechanism in stage 1 and stage 2, and it's a closed angle mechanism in stage 3. So these patients also will require pressure lowering therapy, medical as well, and or surgical to effectively deal with their situation. So when a patient presents to us at a rubeotic stage, it is important to get to the etiology and the extent of the neovascularization process for us to prognosticate the case better and tailor therapy according to the findings in a given case. I'd be very interested in knowing the exact etiology of the condition because, as I mentioned earlier, a few conditions are more aggressive than others. For example, CRVO, and we need to work up these patients and initiate therapy at the earliest and follow these patients up so that we can prevent them from going to the next stage. Extent of the neovascularization process is also important to document. Of course, the intraocular pressure is not elevated at this stage. We need to perform a careful and dilated examination of the iris, do a gonioscopy to look for new vessels in the angle, and perform a fluorescent angiography. And institute have a definite line of management so that they don't move to the next patient. Now, this particular image shows the natural course of neovascular glaucoma, associated changes in intraocular pressure, and the treatment priorities. Panretinal photocoagulation and intravitreal anti-VEGF therapy, they form the mainstay of treatment in all the three stages of neovascular glaucoma. And only in secondary and stage 2 or stage 3, as I mentioned earlier, we will have to think about treatment to lower the intraocular pressure. So we started using bevacizumab quite early when it came to the Indian market, and we presented our research in various international meetings, AAO and the ASCRS, and got a couple of best paper of the session award. So the clinical objective of our study was to look into the efficacy of combining IVB with same-day PRP in the early stages of neovascular glaucoma. Primary outcome measure being regression of new vessels of iris and angle, and secondary outcome measure was control of intraocular pressure. It was a prospective interventional study, 38 eyes, 3 modes of intervention, isolated PRP, IVB monotherapy, and combined IVB and PRP done. So we had a protocol to follow up these patients, and assessment was done to look into the response to intervention, and we also documented the ocular as well as systemic complications. Retreatment schedule, in case retreatment was required, included additional PRP, PRP plus IVB, and repeat IVB. Now, looking at the results, the time to NVI regression was minimum in the combined group. This was least, only for, and this was statistically significant. These are the pre-injection and post-injection images of the same patient, and you see the pathology has regressed significantly, and the patient has been doing better. While looking at the effectiveness of treatment on IOP, we looked at again all the 3 groups. This is the PRP group, this is the IVB group, and this is the combined group. And we noticed that in the combined group, the intraocular pressure drop was quite significant at the second postoperative visit, and it continued up to 3 months of injection. So we concluded that intravitreal bevacizumab monotherapy with PRP can be considered as a first-line option in managing early stage of neovascular glaucoma. So these patients need to be followed up very meticulously, and the follow-up schedule depends upon exact etiology of the disease, stage of the disease, the degree of the IOP control, and the treatment modality that has been adopted. And it may vary from 1 to 2 weeks to every 2 to 3 months, and go up to even 1 year. The primary care physician has to be included in the patient care, and the patient also requires a lot of counseling as to the unpredictable and recalcitrant nature of the disease. Patient also has to be informed about the signs and symptoms of uncontrolled intraocular pressure, and we need to emphasize the relevance of compliance in terms of putting the drops as well as returning for the office visits. Various anti-VEGF molecules have come to the market, and this particular study looked into aflibercept for the treatment of neovascular glaucoma, published in 2015 in Clinical and Experimental Ophthalmology, and it concluded that intravitreal aflibercept may be an effective treatment for stage 1 and stage 2 NVG, resulting in rapid and sustained regression of NVI and NVA as well as control of IOP. However, further research is needed to determine the full duration of effect and the optimal dose and timing of administration. Now, as regards the stages 2 and stage 3, in stage 2, we have to start this patient on pressure lowering medications, and and it is usually a combination of beta blockers, carbonic anhydrase inhibitors, or alpha agonists. Even in children, systemic carbonic anhydrase inhibitors can be added to topical carbonic anhydrase inhibitors. If the patient has a lot of inflammation, maybe prostaglandin analogs may be contraindicated, but in certain situations, it may be necessary for us to use prostaglandin analogs. However, in the majority of these patients, the initial treatment has to be rapidly escalated to maximum tolerated medical therapy, majority of the cases. And the inflammation, the intraocular inflammation may require the use of potent topical steroids and cytotoxic agents for further control. For the third stage neovascular glaucoma, when second angle closure has already taken place, and in the second stage, the patients where the intraocular pressure is not controlled medically, we need to consider surgical therapy. As I mentioned earlier, with the utilization of antimetabolites like mitomycin C or 5-FU, the results of trabeculectomy has become better, and even the results of Ahmed glaucoma valve and Orolab aqueous drainage device also has become better with the introduction of intravitreal bevacizumab. And other options include transcranial cyclophotocoagulation and cyclo-G6 therapy. So how does the trabeculectomy function in these patients? What is the long-term performance? Now, this study performed in Japan actually had an interesting result, and it showed that the total success at a 5-year follow-up was 67.7% complete success, and 85.1% had a qualified success at the 5-year follow-up period. So recently we have been doing most of my cases using the Ahmed glaucoma valve. Earlier on, we tried out Aurora backwards drainage implant, and we know it is a good implant, but in our hands, we had a lot of patients developing hypotony. So Ahmed glaucoma valve has been giving us very good results. So cyclodestructive procedures are considered only as a last resort when the medical treatment has not worked out, the patient has a poor visual potential, and there are contraindication to incisional surgery. I think this is my summary slides and is the most important slide as to how do you manage a patient with neovascular glaucoma. So three questions are basically posed. Is there a clear fundus view? Is the intraocular pressure normal? Is the intraocular pressure controlled with medical treatment? Now, if the fundus view is clear, in that case, the patient gets a PRP and intravitreal anti-VEGF. If the fundal view is not good, then if it is because of cataract, then cataract surgery is performed. If it is vitreous hemorrhage, vitrectomy is done, and then PRP and intravitreal anti-VEGF is used. In case there is no view and the visual prognosis is poor, then we ask us the second question: is the intraocular pressure normal? If it is so, then we closely follow up the patients. On the other hand, if the pressure is elevated, as I mentioned earlier, we start the patient on topical medications, and then we ask again: is the intraocular pressure controlled with medical treatment? If the answer is yes, again follow up these patients. If the intraocular pressure is not controlled with medical management, then our preference is to perform a valve glaucoma drainage device in these patients and consider perioperative intravitreal anti-VEGF. If the visual prognosis is poor, and in that case, we may consider transcranial cyclophotocoagulation. So friends, neovascular glaucoma can be a devastating, potentially sight-threatening variety of secondary angle closure glaucoma. Of late, the prognosis has improved because of better understanding of the pathophysiological pathways, introduction of anti-VEGFs in the therapeutic armamentarium, and better results with trabeculectomy and tubes and shunts in the setting of anti-VEGF injections and the proper control of the retinal ischemia process. Thank you very much for your kind attention.